Chapter 26 Father Victor's Ministry. For more than 800 years, Father Victor had served as a faithful monk under all the bishops and abbots that he has lived through. He had lived through the great schism of 1224 between the Archbishop of Sosura and the Archbishop of Lansaro that split Christendom in half until the schism's end in 2096. The age of false enlightenment, the great apostasy of the most influential heresiarchs of the 16th and 17th century, the war to end all wars from 1927 to 1957, and even the Sosuran-American War from 2065 to 2100, waged on an interstellar scale. But what he was not completely prepared for was becoming a priest. For all his life as a monk, he rarely had to deal with things outside his monastery that wasn't part of his obedience to his abbot and bishop. He was an excellent theologian whose treatises, capable of being understood by ordinary people, destroyed the very intellectual, moral, philosophical, historical, theological, and rational foundations of many of the heretical movements that spawned out of the great apostasy, while steel-manning their positions. But for all his wisdom and knowledge of theology, he never truly had a chance to apply it all. And where he did have many chances to apply it, it was almost always in close, intimate friendships with his spiritual children as a monk seeking their good and salvation. And one of those spiritual children was Vixie, whom he met after she fled from her wealthy family because of their corruption and a terrible and illegal arranged marriage, because of her adolescence. And upon learning this, Victor had helped her settle into her new home, where she met Todd Reddington, and eventually married him out of genuine love, when they both came old enough, and were three tails rather than be sold as property of her father, to an unknown spouse whom she would call Master. And from the way Vixie lived her life, and how her parents were like Victor's mother, Victor saw Vixie as someone much like himself, and felt compassion that moved him to care about her, which scandalized the brothers as he began on something that wasn't strictly under his abbot's blessing. But with the way Victor saw it, his baptism was the blessing to do good works and care about people, and he didn't need permission to at least try to give someone a dignified life. As for Vixie, she was someone who everyone in her new village in the 1400s, when she was just a two-tails, considered her one of the most wholesome people they have ever been around, and not just one of the elegant yet cold-hearted vixens that the Arctic fox subculture molds them to be. It also turned out that the Arctic fox subculture was so cold to anyone who wasn't part of their island that even Inari would rarely visit there, and only visit there for official public matters. It was also during this time that Victor was still a seven-tails, and felt joy at seeing Vixie become a pious Christian, and was an environment that let her grow into her true self. Because seeing how his mother treated him and his twin sister, he wasn't going to let Vixie face the same fate. So Victor took it upon himself to give Vixie a proper education in all manner of things, and use his personal relationship with her to cultivate the gifts she had been given into becoming her own person with dignity. And for this, Vixie considered Victor more of a father to her than her father by blood, who only saw her as living property. It was also during this time that Todd Reddington would also visit Victor frequently, even if he was much more of a socialite and half-tanuki at heart than Vixie, who was known for her quiet, thoughtful, and gentle nature. And because of both Todd and Vixie's piety and love for all people, they never forgot about people outside themselves. And even when Vixie had become one of the 9 executors, because of her regularly socializing with Victor and Inari when Inari would visit him, and Inari noticed Vixie had a knack for good leadership, and so rigorously tested her competence before offering her the rare opportunity to become one of her executors. But out of love for the people of her domain, she never indulged in luxury, nor extravagance, despite being able to afford it on an executor's salary, and lived in a house like everyone else. She was so dedicated to the cause of ordinary people that she felt guilt for having a servant, despite her desperate need for one. And it wasn't until Vixie collapsed from exhaustion and kept getting sick that her husband, Todd Reddington, convinced her to hire a servant to handle the tedious tasks of everyday life. And that servant was Dixie. But despite being a servant, Vixie refused to treat Dixie like one, but as someone deserving of dignity and respect, as that was the example Victor showed towards her, towards all people that she internalized. And despite Dixie being from the Tanuki Republic, Vixie didn't care and treated Dixie as if she were part of her extended family. As such, Vixie gave Dixie a place to stay and even offered to pay for her own house. But after having such a good experience with Vixie, Dixie decided she would live in Vixie's house in the side of a hill. And Vixie treated Dixie so well that when the Tanuki Republic's military tried to use Dixie as a means to get top secret information within the high ranks of the kitsune government through Vixie, Dixie refused to cooperate and went on living with Vixie as if she were part of her extended family. There was also a longtime friend of Victor named Sozan Yako, who had faithfully served under Inari for about the same time that Victor had been a monk. But unlike Todd and Vixie, Sozan wasn't so fortunate. Because unlike Todd and Vixie, Sozan was essentially Inari's slave, while at the same time being her right paw-hand man. She had a romantic attraction to when she wasn't burying herself in her work as Empress. And although he never understood why, it was only around Victor that Sozan felt safe revealing the depths of his own emotions and where he felt like he could truly be himself. After all, men of the Yako family were expected to be dutiful and provide for their country, to reflect on one's past and emotions instead of fulfilling duties and continuing the traditions, regardless of whether or not those traditions were right or wrong, was seen as a disgrace for any man of the Yako family line. And Sozan, with his connection to his past and deep feelings that had been suppressed for so long, if he showed it publicly, he would have been seen as one of those to be a disgrace and a dishonor, with serving Inari seen as his rightful fate. And after so many centuries of Victor's ministry, he was now a priest, and preparing to serve his first liturgy since his ordination, and being assigned to the monastery where his journey first began with Father Nicholas at the beginning of the 1200s. And because everyone in his congregation were catechumens except for Todd, Vixie, Dixie, and Sozan Yako, they would also be the first he would commune and give the food and drink of eternal life. Life as an ordinary girl. After a long time of getting into a bunch of otherworldly problems, it was time for Titania's life to get back to normal as can be, for a former fairy princess, living as a high school girl in Kansas. And after everything she's been through, the boredom of a senior high school student was now a beautiful thing. And despite her hate of math, even math class was something to delight in. Because at least in math class she wouldn't be constantly the target of some evil king or a bargaining chip. She didn't even care to make public use of her magical ability as an exceptionally strong fairy, because she just felt like it was better to enjoy the mundane while she still could. Despite her former status as the crown princess of the Void Kingdom, she had formally left that in the past. Now she was an ordinary American fairy girl, finding her way in the world. And despite all the stories she could tell, She never brought it up at school, and just brought up the mundane things of life with her caretaker Natalia and Buck Ringtail. Her godfather and godmother Jeremiah and Edenthiel were also regular parts of Titania's life again, after her return to Kansas. Finnegan and his usual assigned coworker Bill the Lightning Dragonborn Protogen also decided to pay Natalia a visit, and began to talk about their lives now that Finnegan and Bill didn't have to work for a while. And it was during this time that Titania overheard Finnegan the Fennec Fox Kitsune say, "Yeah, I remember him in Specimen 45 Sylvanus." She was sure entitled the spider situation. The colonel said he wanted her shipped out of Area 51 to Alaska so she couldn't influence Titania in her manipulative schemes, and so that she would be unable to cause harm to the public. And knowing her background, I could see why. Sylvanus was about as evil as my old boss Inari. Heck, probably worse, because at least Inari thought she was doing the right thing in using the keys of prosperity, bringing prosperity to her kingdom, without realizing she was using dark magic, and therefore being corrupted by them and losing her real self in the process. That was probably long gone by the time I started working for her. Meanwhile, that dark fairy Sylvanus only thought of serving herself, and everyone else just a means to her end. No wonder she fell in love with King Azrael. She's so much alike. Titania perceived Finnegan was possibly talking about her birth mother. She never knew and asked, "Hey, do you know if Sylvanus had children or was ever married to King Azrael?" Finnegan answered Titania bluntly, "You're her daughter. And it's a good thing you're nothing like her, in that Natalia here has been a good influence on your life." Titania then asked Natalia, feeling betrayed, "Did you know this all along and didn't tell me?" Natalia answered honestly, "I didn't know anything about this until Finnegan mentioned it just now. The 50 states program for the magically gifted only shares between the agents what they absolutely need to know for their missions. Everything else is top secret, and that I don't even have the clearance to. One of those being the Area 51 research projects, in which Sylvanus was probably a part of. That's why Finnegan mentioned the magical creature containment vault in Alaska, where he was stationed to make sure everything was secure before being transferred to the Celanese Empire." And after hearing Natalia say, so many emotions stirred into Titania's heart that she didn't know what to think. She felt like she was being lied to, or like something was kept from her, but at the same time, she knew Natalia only did what she thought was the right for her, and Finnegan Fennec just being an honest Todd with no filter about what he thinks and sees. Finnegan then thought he should say something to help Titania and said, "Listen here, Titania. Every kid deserves parents, but not every parent deserves kids. Sylvanus was the type not to deserve you, but the world is better for having you in it. You're a good girl, Titania, and you're not to blame for Sylvanus being a piece of shit mother who never cared for you and left you to be raised by Edenthiel, who actually does care about you. If anything, Edenthiel is your real mom, even if she isn't your mother by blood. Because if you're related by blood and they don't love you and don't wish her good, they're not your family. Real family loves and takes care of each other, and that's what Edenthiel and Natalia did for you. They're your real family, come to think of it." But rather than take Finnegan's words as a means of comfort, she just got angry as her lavender eyes turned red as Finnegan said, "I should probably just shut up now. Take the time you need to sort through it all." Natalia could feel that Titania was going through, and motioned for Finnegan to stay quiet, while leaving Titania space to sort through it all. Titania then thought to herself, Natalia, Finnegan, and Jeremiah, they all said the same thing. I hoped my mother would be someone I would be happy to see. But now I know she's nothing more than someone I was better off for not knowing or having in my life. I'd imagined so many things I would do when if I found my mother, but I realize she was something never worth getting to know. I hope I never see her in my life. Natalia then asked Finnegan, "If you're allowed to tell me, what else do you know about Sylvanas?" Finnegan answered, "I am someone she especially hates, as well as Dr. Schleiden, who had began his life's work in the 2050s. Even after Dr. Schleiden's work led to Sylvanas being rescued from a failed FTL drive accident, she still had the entitlement to treat him as a means to her end. Fortunately, Dr. Schleiden wasn't stupid and worked with the other scientists to develop improved magic suppression technology to keep much more powerful magical creatures under control like Sylvanas. Apparently, being exposed to so much raw magical energy, which is abundant in the surreal plane in which FTL drives open and close portals to, caused Sylvanas' abilities to be warped and mutated beyond what is normal for fairies. It's similar to what me, along with Buck and Andrew Clay, saw when Solara killed the 14 sisters, spoken of in the Veritalk myths and legends, but they had been too exposed to so much raw magical energy that their bodies weren't even normal matter anymore, but partially made out of magical energy. And apparently when someone has that much raw magical energy flow through them without properly preparing for it, it makes them go insane. That's why fake nine-tails that try to artificially create the power of a true nine-tailed kitsune without humility and a pure heart end up destroying themselves like Gumiho Yako, who wanted instant gratification rather than face the difficult and disciplined path of becoming a true nine-tails. A similar thing happened with Sylvanas, necessitating the need to create more powerful magic suppression technology, specifically for her, and detoxing overloaded magical energy that ends up inside people who get trapped in the surreal plane, an extremely rare scenario when both the main and backup FTL drive fail while in the surreal plane. If anything, Sylvanas has been instrumental for Dr. Schleiden's work that has served the general public very well, and considers her a necessary evil in the process. So, I take it that Sylvanas was basically no longer human at this point. Basically. It's best if she's kept in that magical creature containment vault where she can't hurt anyone. However, I don't know what to do about Titania, but I'll leave that up to you. You know her better than I do. I just think she should know the truth for her own good, that it can't be hidden from her forever. Natalia let out a sigh. You're right. Titania does need to know the truth of her family, but I think there's a right and wrong way to go about doing it. Then I'll let you figure that out. You're a better negotiator than I am. Then I'll do that. Later, Titania went to bed and had someone to think through her feelings and what she would do with what she learned. And after remembering all the things she went through with Natalia and Edenthiel, she decided she would stay close to them and attach herself to the good people in her life. After all, with the love Edenthiel, Natalia, Jeremiah, Agrodon, and Sylvia had for her, they were her true family now.